Hi everyone. Seeing as how I'm still laid up, one-armed bandit that doesn't pay out still, I'm not going to be able to get any projects done in the next week or so. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk you through how I put together our off-grid solar power generation system. Bottom line, if you can build a piece of furniture from IKEA by following the instruction manuals that come with it, you can put together a solar power system. It's that simple, really. After doing a bit of research, poking around the internet, looking at some reviews, etc., I settled on the MPP Solar brand of inverters slash chargers that had very good write-ups. I'd also been made aware that there were cheap knockoffs of the same thing, counterfeit products. So when I was sourcing, I made sure that I got the genuine article made and manufactured in Taiwan. I'll talk about the total cost breakdown towards the end of the video. I'm sure that most of you are interested in knowing what it costs to put up. Now, it's also important to note that when I first started sourcing this equipment, it was never our intention to go fully off-grid. Just wanted to build in a little bit of independence should the need arise, and also have the option of not being held hostage by extortionate electricity prices. As it turns out, I wasn't far off the mark with that one. I sourced the majority of the components in 2017 while I was still in the UK. I used eBay, I used Gumtree, and I used various other second-hand sort of sites to do my scouring. I didn't want to pay the going price for solar panels in those days, which was around about £300 per panel. I managed to pick up 28 second-hand and new panels. I also picked up a number of these solar array contactors. Sadly, when I started putting the board together, I realized I wasn't going to have enough space to fit these all on the board along with the inverters and charge controller. So I had to come up with another smart idea. And that was when I had a brainwave and decided to go for DC rated RCD contactors. Kill two birds with one stone, act as a contactor as well as a fuse. Job done. So this is the mains input board that I put together. It sits in between the feed from the energy company and my main isolator board that sits in the pump house. So as you can see, I've got the main input, I've got generator input, I've got a bypass switch, I'll talk about that now, and I've got inverter A and B mains input. As you can see, mains, generator, and bypass are all down, which means we're not taking any feed from the mains, the generator. I put the bypass switch in for emergency use. Assuming both inverters died for whatever reason, I could switch them off, flip the bypass switch, hit the mains, and then it would just run straight from the energy source of power straight into the main distribution board in the pump house. This is the renewable output. I've got inverter A and inverter B that come into a main switch, probably overkill, but that's just the way I did it. These are the DC isolators for the solar panel strings. The ones on the left are for inverter A, and the two isolators over here are for the 2 kilowatts of panels that feed into the supplementary MPPT controller. These four circuit breakers are for the panels for inverter B. And this is the main fuse for the battery bank, which is 48 volts lead acid, 25 kilowatt hours. So usable just over 50%. Sadly, I cannot locate the video footage of me putting the board together, so you're just going to have to make do with a couple of pictures that I've put together. I'm not going to bore you with talking you through what I'm doing. Rather have a listen to a bit of music and I'll drop in and out where required.
Watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away. Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Gotta build up of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay. Just let me be me and I'll stay out of...
Now that I'd finished wiring up the AC and DC side, it was time to get in a set of test batteries to hook up and make sure that the inverters all worked as expected before dragging all the panels up onto the roof.
If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change I need today. I promise that I've never felt this way. I really hope that you will choose to stay through all the pain. I know you told your friend you're not okay.
I've played around with a lot of different combinations of strings and setting them up on sloping stands, but you'll see I've gone back to just lying them flat on the roof. Couldn't sleep at night for any wind, worrying they were going to go flying off into the neighbor's garden.
As you fade away, as you fade away.
With the solar setup completed, it was now time to move on to the 2 kilowatt wind turbine. I decided I needed that for when the sun wasn't shining. Mounted the controller, installed the turbine and waited until eventually the wind came. Everything was working great. The wind turbine was charging the batteries really well when a pretty decent wind coming through. So I was happy. I had coverage, sunshine and wind. I was perfectly fine. Everything was working absolutely fine until it wasn't. Who knew wind turbines could create so much force? I'm going to have to rethink how I do this one.
Tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way.
So that's the completed off-grid solar system. The two main inverters from MPP Solar, plus the 2 kilowatt charge controller up at the top. There is space at the top for me to remount the wind turbine controller once I'm ready to tackle the wind turbine again. But that will be on its own pole, buried really deep into the garden somewhere.
So these banks over here, the first four, are what are feeding inverter B. 3 times 330 watt panels per string. And then these two strings here and these 3 strings over here is what's feeding inverter A. And these are the 2 1 kilowatt strings on the back of the garage that we covered the install of in the previous videos. I don't see the system changing configuration wise for solar anytime soon.
So this is the final configuration of our system. I'm not going to add any more solar at this stage. I will, however, be putting the wind turbine back up once I figure a safe and secure place to mount it in the garden, far away from any buildings. And finally, the cost. I've got to be honest with you, when I sat down and tallied this all up, it actually cost me quite a lot more than I thought it did in my head. I had a figure of 8.5, 9 grand in my head, but I guess I can't really complain. At 11, quarter 11.5 to round it up. I think I've saved that much in electricity costs already. So all in all, well worth the effort. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. If you've got any questions, just drop a comment below and I'll get back to you and try and answer them to the best of my ability. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you next week. And remember, stay safe out there.
But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade.